Now that we're here, let's go ahead and click on the Get Around in Your Data tab. You're in a new spreadsheet now, a new sheet called Getting Around in Your Data. The first thing we're going to talk about here is the Freeze Panes functionality. The Freeze Panes functionality allows you to keep visual contact with certain portions of your spreadsheet as you move around. Where this comes in handy is when you have to scroll down through your data set, and as you go down, you'll notice that your column headers disappear. They're gone. The problem is, as you look at your data here, you're not quite sure which field goes with what label. So I don't know necessarily which one of these numbers are units. I don't know which one of these numbers are revenues. Obviously, you can tell from the dollar sign here, but if you have lots of data points or lots of columns that have similar looking functionalities or numbers, it would be difficult to tell. So in order to resolve this problem, I'll employ the Freeze Panes functionality. Now to get there, I'm going to click on the View tab. Then I'll find the Freeze Panes command button. If you click on the command button, you'll see three options: Freeze Panes, Freeze Top Row, and Freeze First Column. And let's go through each one of these. First, let's talk about Freeze Panes. The Freeze Panes selection freezes all columns to the left of the active cell and all rows above the active cell. So let's see an example of that. I'm going to unselect this and go back to my spreadsheet. Then I'll move up to cell A1, and I can do that again, remember, by typing A1 here in the name box and hitting enter. It moves me up to A1. Now what I want to do here is freeze the columns that show region and market, and also I want to freeze the first row. So what I can do here is place my cursor right at the intersection of the two columns that I want to freeze and the row that I want to freeze. Click that. Now remember, the Freeze Pane selection freezes the columns to the left of the active cell and the rows to the top of the active cell. So ideally, row 1 should be frozen and columns A and B should be frozen. So I'll go up to the Freeze Panes command and select Freeze Panes. Okay, doesn't look like a lot has happened, but if I scroll down, you'll notice that the header row is locked. And also if I scroll right, you'll notice that columns A and B are frozen. And this really comes in handy when you have spreadsheets with lots and lots of columns where you have to scroll right but still see some of the first few columns in the spreadsheet. So to remove the Freeze Panes, I'll simply return to the Freeze Panes command and select the Freeze Pane selection. And you'll notice it's no longer Freeze Panes, it now says Unfreeze Panes. So if I select that, your spreadsheet returns to a normal state. The other selections in the Freeze Panes command are Freeze Top Row and Freeze First Column. With these selections, you don't necessarily have to have your cursor placed in any cell to activate it. All you would do is simply select Freeze Top Row in order to freeze the top row. The top row is frozen, and you can test this out by scrolling down. Again, to return your spreadsheet to a normal state, simply select the Freeze Panes command and select Unfreeze Panes. And finally, the last selection here, Freeze First Column. Clicking that will keep the first column visible no matter how far you scroll right. Again, let's test it out. And the first column is frozen.